Admiral Valdris stared at the human ship for long minutes before making her decision. Pride was important, but survival was more important, and these humans had just proven they could destroy her entire fleet without breaking their stride. "Stand down all weapons," she commanded. "Maintain defensive formation, but no hostile actions." Captain Han Wu watched the alien fleet pull back slightly and nodded with satisfaction. "Good, now we can demonstrate what we really came here to do." "Sir?" Lieutenant Yun Bin asked from the tactical station. "We came here to explore and make friends, not to fight wars. Let's show them what human technology can really do when we're not being defensive." Han Wu turned to his science officer. "Commander Lee, select an uninhabited asteroid in this system. Something large enough to be impressive." Li Na worked at her console for a moment. "There's a planetoid about 50 kilometers wide in the outer system, Captain. No life signs, mostly iron and rock. Perfect. Helm, take us there. Send our course to the Valterian fleet and invite them to observe." Lieutenant Shin-A guided the Indomitable toward the selected asteroid, the Valterian fleet following at a respectful distance. Admiral Valdris watched with growing concern as the human ship approached the massive rock. "What are they doing?" she wondered aloud. Her science officer checked his readings. "Unknown, Admiral. They're not charging any weapons that I can detect." "Sir," her communications officer reported, "the humans are broadcasting a message. They say they want to demonstrate the difference between defensive and offensive capabilities." The Indomitable came to a stop 10,000 kilometers from the asteroid. On the bridge, Captain Han Wu nodded to his tactical officer. "Yun Bin, 1 pulse from the main deflector array." Minimum power, sir? That seems like overkill for a demonstration." "Trust me, it will be adequate." Yun Bin targeted the asteroid and fired. A beam of coherent energy, thinner than a pencil and lasting less than a second, struck the massive rock. The asteroid exploded. Not just cracked or damaged. It exploded completely, vaporizing into a cloud of glowing plasma that lit up the entire system. Where moments before there had been a 50-kilometer-wide planetoid, now there was only expanding gas and energy. On the Valterian flagship, every officer stood in shocked silence. Admiral Valdris felt her legs give out and collapsed into her command chair. "That was minimum power?" she whispered. Her science officer was frantically checking his instruments. "Admiral, the energy release was equivalent to several antimatter warheads, but there was no antimatter signature. I don't understand what kind of weapon that was. Scan their ship again. Find their weapons." "I've been scanning continuously, Admiral. I still can't detect any weapon systems. Whatever they just used doesn't register on our sensors as a weapon." Captain Han Wu opened communications to the Valterian fleet. "Admiral Valdris, we hope that demonstrates why we prefer peaceful solutions. We have no desire to use such force against living beings." Admiral Valdris struggled to find her voice. What did you just do?" "We redirected a small amount of energy from our deflector array. It's normally used for clearing space debris from our path during faster-than-light travel." "Your debris clearing system can destroy planets?" "Small ones, yes. It has to be powerful enough to handle large asteroids at high velocity. We're very careful about where we point it." The implications hit Valdris like a physical blow. If their maintenance equipment could vaporize planetoids, what could their actual weapons do? On the Indomitable, Gunnery Sergeant Beijun entered the bridge in his dress uniform. "Captain, you wanted to see me?" "Yes, Sergeant. We're going to attempt face-to-face negotiations. I want you to accompany me to the alien flagship." "Yes, sir. Should I bring a security detail?" "Just you will be sufficient. This is a diplomatic mission, not a military operation." Lieutenant Shin-A looked up from her helm controls. "Captain, should I prep a standard shuttle?" "Yes. Make sure the cultural exchange package is loaded, the one Commander Lee prepared." Systems Analyst Yang Su approached with a datapad. "Captain, I've compiled a basic technology overview for the aliens. Nothing classified, just general principles that might help them understand our capabilities." "Good thinking." Yang Su. "Add it to the package." 30 minutes later, a small shuttlecraft launched from the Indomitable. The Valterians watched it approach with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The shuttle was sleek and elegant, moving through space with impossible grace. "Admiral," the tactical officer reported, "the shuttle's not using any propulsion system I can identify. It's moving without visible exhaust or energy signatures." "More technology we don't understand," Valdris muttered. The shuttle docked with the Death's Edge using connection systems that somehow matched Valterian design perfectly. Admiral Valdris met the human delegation in her main conference room, flanked by her senior officers. Captain Han Wu stepped through the airlock wearing a simple blue uniform with minimal decoration. Behind him came Gunnery Sergeant Bei Jun, whose powered armor made him look like a walking tank. The armor was clearly ceremonial rather than combat gear, but the implied strength was impossible to miss. "Admiral Valdris," Han Wu said with a respectful bow, "thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Valdris studied the two humans carefully. They were smaller than she had expected. Han Wu barely came up to her shoulder. But there was something in their calm confidence that made them seem much larger. "Captain Han Wu," she replied formally, "your demonstration was impressive. We apologize for the aggressive display. We wanted to establish clear communication about our capabilities to avoid further misunderstandings." Han Wu gestured to Sergeant Bei Jun, who produced a small device from his armor. "We've brought gifts, examples of human culture and basic scientific principles. We hope they will help our peoples understand each other." Yang Su's cultural package activated, projecting holographic displays of human art, music, and literature. The Valterians watched in fascination as images of Earth's cities, forests, and oceans filled the room. "This is your homeworld?" Valdris asked. "One of many," Han Wu replied casually. "Humanity has spread to several hundred systems over the past 2 centuries. Several hundred systems." Valdris felt the room spin slightly. The entire Valterian Confederation controlled only 12 systems, and that had taken them 1,000 years to achieve. "Your technology," she said carefully. "How advanced is it compared to ours?" Han Wu looked uncomfortable. "Admiral, that's a difficult question to answer diplomatically. Answer it honestly." Han Wu exchanged glances with Sergeant Bei Jun, then sighed. "Your current technology level is roughly equivalent to where humanity was about 300 years ago. You're not primitive. You're just on a different development path, 300 years behind." Valdris absorbed this information and realized that everything she thought she knew about galactic civilization was wrong. "What do you want from us?" she asked. "Friendship," Han Wu replied simply. "Knowledge exchange, cultural cooperation, perhaps trade agreements. The universe is large and often dangerous. It's better to have allies than to stand alone. And if we refuse?" Han Wu looked genuinely puzzled. "Then we'll wish you well and continue on our way. We're explorers, Admiral, not conquerors." For the first time in her military career, Admiral Valdris found herself completely outmatched by an enemy who didn't want to be her enemy. Council Speaker Veltash Koros called for a formal assembly of the Valterian High Command. For 3 days, the leadership debated behind closed doors while the human ships waited patiently in space nearby. "We cannot trust them," argued War Commander Sekran Voss, Captain Sektar's older brother. "No species offers such generous terms without hidden motives. And what choice do we have?" Fleet Admiral Thoss replied. "If they wanted to conquer us, they could do it easily. One of their exploration ships defeated our entire border fleet without taking damage." "Exactly my point," Voss continued. "They're so powerful they don't need to conquer us. They can simply make us dependent on their technology and control us that way." Council Speaker Koros listened to the arguments and felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Whatever decision they made would affect every Valterian for generations to come. "What does our science division recommend?" he asked. Chief Scientist Telnara Quinn stepped forward with her analysis. "The human technology samples they've shared show revolutionary advances in energy generation, materials science, and computer systems. If we could understand even 10% of their knowledge, we could solve resource shortages, extend our lifespans, and expand our civilization beyond anything we've dreamed." "And the risks?" "Cultural contamination is the primary concern. Our society is built on warrior traditions and collective strength. Human individualism and technological dependence could weaken those foundations." Admiral Valdris, who had remained quiet during most of the debate, finally spoke. "I fought them. I've seen their capabilities firsthand. But I've also seen their restraint. They could have destroyed my fleet in seconds, but they chose to defend themselves without causing casualties." "That proves nothing," War Commander Voss insisted. "Perhaps they were simply toying with us. For what purpose? To amuse themselves before destroying us anyway? That makes no sense." On the human ships, Captain Han Wu met daily with Ambassador Ryu Hana to discuss the ongoing negotiations. Trade specialist Moonbo had joined them, bringing economic projections that painted an interesting picture. The Valtarian Confederation has rich natural resources but inefficient extraction methods, Moonbo reported. With improved technology, they could become major suppliers of rare metals and energy crystals to human space. A genuine partnership then, Han Wu observed. They get advancement, we get resources and new trade routes. Exactly. But there's another factor to consider. Moonbo activated a star chart showing the local region. The Valtarians control territory that borders 3 other alien civilizations. If we can establish good relations with them, it opens diplomatic channels to potentially dozens of other species. Ambassador Ryu Hana studied the chart thoughtfully. So this isn't just about helping one species. It could be the foundation for peaceful relations across this entire sector of the galaxy. That's the hope, Moonbo agreed. The alternative is that each species remains isolated and potentially hostile. Eventually, that leads to conflicts that benefit no one. On the 4th day, Council Speaker Koros requested a final meeting with the human delegation. The gathering took place in the Valtarian flagship's main assembly hall, with both species' senior leaders present. Ambassador Ryu Hana, Koros began formally. The Valtarian Confederation has reached a decision regarding your proposal. The room fell silent as he prepared to speak words that would change galactic history. We accept your offer of friendship and technological cooperation with the following conditions. First, all technology transfers must be gradual, allowing our people time to adapt. Second, Valtarian cultural and military traditions must be respected and preserved. Third, we remain sovereign over our own worlds and people. Ryu Hana smiled warmly. Those conditions are entirely reasonable and acceptable. We would also like to propose regular cultural exchange programs and joint exploration missions. Agreed, Koros replied. But we have one final question. Why are you really doing this? The truth, not diplomatic pleasantries. Ambassador Ryu Hana considered her words carefully. Because humanity learned long ago that isolated civilizations eventually stagnate or destroy themselves. We survived our early conflicts by learning to cooperate, share knowledge, and help each other advance. Now we extend that philosophy to other species. And if we had chosen to remain hostile, we would have left you alone and continued exploring. But we would have been sad to miss the opportunity to learn from your culture and share our own. Fleet Admiral Thoth stepped forward. I have a military question. Your ship, the Indomitable, Captain Han Wu called it a mid-range exploration vessel. What are your actual warships like? Captain Han Wu exchanged glances with Ambassador Ryu Hana, who nodded permission to answer. Admiral, the Indomitable carries scientific equipment and cultural databases. A military vessel of the same size would carry weapon systems, armor plating, and tactical computers. The difference in combat capability would be significant. How significant? A human battleship could probably defeat several hundred vessels like the Indomitable. The Valtarian officers absorbed this information in stunned silence. If the ship that had effortlessly defeated their entire fleet was considered lightly armed by human standards, then humanity's military capabilities were beyond their comprehension. How many such battleships do you have? Thoth asked quietly. Enough, Han Wu replied diplomatically, but they're used for defense against genuine threats, not for conquering peaceful neighbors. Over the following months, the human-Valtarian partnership began to take shape. Engineer Koyul established technical training programs on Valtarian worlds, teaching improved manufacturing and energy systems. Dr. Choi Min worked with Valtarian medical scientists to develop life extension treatments adapted to their biology. Trade specialist Moon Bo negotiated agreements that made both species more prosperous. Valtarian rare metals and crystals flowed to human space, while human technology and manufactured goods improved Valtarian living standards. Most importantly, joint exploration missions began mapping unknown regions of space. Human ships provided protection and advanced sensors, while Valtarian crews contributed tactical expertise and knowledge of local space. 6 months after first contact, Admiral Keto Valdris stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the New Dawn. The ship was a hybrid design, combining Valtarian engineering traditions with human technological principles. It was twice as fast as her old vessel, 10 times as powerful, and equipped with defensive systems that made it nearly invulnerable. "Admiral," her science officer reported, "we're receiving a distress signal from the Kelhari system. Unknown attackers are raiding their shipping routes." Valdris smiled, feeling the familiar excitement of approaching battle. But now she commanded ships that could actually make a difference against serious opponents. "Set course for Kelhari space," she ordered, "and send a message to Captain Han Wu. Tell him the Confederation is ready to prove we deserve our new capabilities." The New Dawn jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying Valterian crews trained by human instructors to defend worlds they had never seen before. Behind them, human and Valterian ships worked together to build something unprecedented in galactic history, a true alliance between species. The Terran Battlecruiser had arrived and left the aliens stunned. But more than that, it had left them transformed. The Valterian Confederation was no longer a small, isolated warrior culture struggling to expand. They had become part of something larger, a growing alliance of civilizations working together to explore and protect the galaxy. And in the years that followed, when other alien species encountered the humans and their Valterian allies, they too faced the same choice: remain alone and be left behind, or join the growing community of civilizations that had chosen cooperation over conflict. Most chose cooperation. The galaxy was vast and often dangerous, and it was better to have friends than to stand alone. Captain Han Wu had been right about that. The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the Valterian warship Death's Edge. Admiral Keto Valdris clicked her mandibles in annoyance as she studied the sensor readings. Her 6 arms moved quickly across the control panels, each hand working a different station. "Report," she demanded, her voice sharp like breaking glass. "Unknown vessel approaching the Nexus system boundary." "Admiral," replied her tactical officer. "It appears to be a primitive design. Single hull construction, no visible weapon ports." Valdris examined the data herself. The ship was massive, nearly twice the length of her own command vessel. But the readings showed outdated technology, crude fusion drives, basic metal hull plating, and what looked like ancient communication arrays. "Origin?" she asked. "Unknown, Admiral. But we detected similar energy signatures from a recently cataloged system. The inhabitants call their world Earth." Valdris felt her antennae twitch with amusement. Earth. The scouts had reported a primitive world, populated by soft-skinned bipeds who had barely learned to leave their own planet. Their technology was centuries behind the Confederation's standards. "They dare to enter our space uninvited," Valdris said. "Send the standard warning. Tell them to surrender immediately or face destruction." On the bridge of the Terran vessel Indomitable, Captain Han Wu sat calmly in his command chair. His dark eyes watched the main screen as the alien fleet formed up ahead of them. 12 ships, all bristling with weapons and moving in perfect formation. "Incoming transmission, Captain," reported Lieutenant Park Sol from the communications station. "It's in an unknown language, but the computer is working on it." "How long for translation?" Han Wu asked. "The AI has it already, sir," Park Sol replied, looking surprised. "The language structure is actually quite simple. They're demanding our immediate surrender." Commander Li Na looked up from her science station. "Captain, I'm reading interesting energy patterns from their vessels. Their technology appears to be plasma-based with some kind of stealth screening around their hulls." Han Wu nodded thoughtfully. "Can we scan through their stealth systems?" "Already done, sir. I have complete tactical readings on all 12 vessels." Admiral Valdris waited for the primitive vessel to respond to her warning. Her fleet was positioned perfectly. Escape routes blocked, weapons trained on the single enemy ship. It should have been a simple matter. Then her communications officer made a sound of surprise. "Admiral, we're receiving a response." "But they're speaking perfect High Valterian." "Impossible. Run it through the translators again." "No need, Admiral. Listen." The voice that came through the speakers was calm and polite, with the formal tones of educated Valterian nobility. "Greetings, Admiral Keto Valdris of the Valterian Confederation. I'm Captain Han Wu of the Terran vessel Indomitable. We request safe passage through this system and mean no harm to your people." Valdris felt her blood chill. They knew her name. They knew her rank. They spoke her language better than many of her own officers. "How do they know who I am?" she whispered. Her tactical officer checked his screens and made a strangled sound. "Admiral, they're broadcasting our complete fleet composition back to us. Formation details, weapon loadouts, crew numbers, everything. That's impossible. Our stealth screens are active. They are, Admiral, but somehow they can see right through them. On the Indomitable, Lieutenant Yun Bin studied the alien fleet formation with professional interest. Captain, their tactical positioning is actually quite good. Classic pincer movement with overlapping fields of fire. Any threat to us? Han Wu asked. None, sir. Their weapons are plasma-based. Probably 3rd or 4th generation technology. Our shields will handle them easily. Commander Li Na continued her scans of the alien vessels. Captain, I'm detecting biological signatures. These appear to be insectoid species. 6-limbed chitinous exoskeletons, collective decision-making patterns. Fascinating. Cultural assessment? Han Wu asked. Warrior Society hierarchical command structure. They seem to view this encounter as a matter of territorial dominance rather than diplomacy. Han Wu considered this information. Park Sol, open a channel again. Use their formal diplomatic protocols. Channel open, sir. Admiral Valdris, we understand your concern about unknown vessels in your space. As a gesture of good faith, we're transmitting our cultural database and peaceful intentions. We are explorers, not conquerors. Admiral Valdris watched in growing alarm as data flooded her ship's computers. The transmission contained detailed information about human civilization, art, music, literature, scientific principles, and most disturbing of all, technology specifications that made her own fleet look primitive. Sir, her science officer reported, their data includes fusion drive designs that are at least 3 generations ahead of ours. And their artificial intelligence systems, they're running full consciousness level AI as standard equipment. What about their weapons? Valdris demanded. Unknown, Admiral. They're not showing any aggressive systems in their scans. But given their other technology, Valdris didn't need him to finish. If these humans were this far ahead in every other area, their weapons would be proportionally advanced. Admiral, her communications officer said nervously, they're asking for permission to approach under peaceful terms. Captain Han Wu waited patiently for a response. The alien fleet hadn't moved from their threatening positions, but he could see their scanning activity had increased dramatically. Commander Li, he said, what's your assessment of their reaction? They're confused and frightened, Captain. Their scans are telling them things that don't match their expectations. I believe they expected to encounter primitive barbarians, and instead they found us. Exactly, sir. Lieutenant Park Sol looked up from his station. Captain, we're receiving multiple transmissions from their fleet. It sounds like they're arguing among themselves. Put it through the translators. The bridge filled with the sound of clicking, chittering voices speaking rapidly in Valterian. The translation software rendered it into English. Arguments about protocol, debates about threat levels, and increasingly frantic questions about human capabilities. Han Wu listened for a moment, then raised his hand for silence. Park Sol, open a direct channel to Admiral Valdris. Channel open, Captain. Admiral, we can hear your fleet communications. We understand your confusion. Perhaps we could meet face to face and discuss this situation calmly. We have no desire for conflict. On the death's edge, Admiral Valdris stared at the communication panel in shock. They could intercept and translate her secured fleet communications in real time. No enemy in Confederation history had ever demonstrated such capability. Orders, Admiral? Her tactical officer asked quietly. Valdris looked at the single human vessel on her main screen. It sat there peacefully, making no aggressive moves despite clearly having the capability to destroy her entire fleet. These humans had demonstrated technology that surpassed the Confederation's best science, yet they asked for peaceful discussion. For the first time in her long military career, Admiral Quito Valdris felt truly outmatched, and the humans hadn't even shown their weapons yet. Admiral Valdris made her decision quickly. Pride had built the Valterian Confederation, and Pride would not let her back down from primitive aliens, no matter how advanced their technology seemed. All ships, attack formation Beta 7, she commanded. Target their engines and weapon systems. We'll disable them and take their technology. 50 Valterian warships moved like a deadly swarm, their plasma weapons charging with bright blue energy. Captain Sektar Voss led the strike wing, his ship Razor's Flight diving toward the human vessel at maximum speed. For the Confederation, Voss shouted as he opened fire. The space around the Indomitable lit up with dozens of plasma bolts, each one capable of melting through a battleship's armor. The Valterians watched with satisfaction as their coordinated attack struck the Human vessel. Then they watched in growing horror as every single shot simply vanished against an invisible barrier surrounding the human ship. On the Indomitable's bridge, Captain Hanwoo sighed sadly. "So much for diplomacy," he said. "Defensive positions only. Do not return fire." "Yes, sir," replied Lieutenant Yoon Bin from the tactical station. "Point defense systems are handling their attack easily. Should I raise combat shields? No need. Standard navigational shields are sufficient." Chief Engineer Kim Tae's voice came through the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, their plasma weapons are actually quite interesting from an engineering perspective. Very inefficient energy conversion, but the focusing systems show clever design work." "Any damage to the ship, Kim?" Hanwoo asked. "None, sir. Their weapons can't penetrate our basic shielding. It's like throwing rocks at a mountain." Dr. Choi Min looked up from her medical station where she was analyzing the alien crew. "Captain, I'm reading elevated stress hormones from the attacking vessels. They're becoming increasingly agitated." Commander Lee Na watched the tactical display with scientific interest. "Their attack patterns are actually quite sophisticated. They're trying multiple approach vectors and varying their weapon frequencies. Unfortunately for them, our shields adapt faster than they can adjust." Captain Sektar Voss pulled his fighter into a tight loop and came at the human ship from below. His best pilots followed him, their weapons firing continuously. Nothing happened. The human vessel sat there like a peaceful island in a storm of deadly energy. "Target their engines," Voss commanded. "Concentrate all fire on their drive systems." 20 fighters focused their weapons on the Indomitable's engine section. The plasma bolts struck the shields and disappeared like rain hitting glass. "Sir," Voss's wingman reported, "I'm reading no energy drain from their defensive systems. It's like they're not even using power to stop our attacks." Admiral Valdris watched the battle from her command ship and felt a cold fear growing in her thorax. Her finest pilots, her most powerful weapons, her best tactical formations, all useless against this single human vessel. "Science officer," she snapped, "explain to me how their shields work." "I can't, Admiral. The energy readings don't match any known defensive technology. Their shields seem to operate on principles we don't understand. And their weapons? Are they charging weapons?" "Unknown, Admiral. I can't detect any weapon systems at all. Either they're using stealth technology beyond our sensors or what? Or they don't consider us enough of a threat to arm their weapons." The battle continued for 2 hours. The Valterian fleet tried every tactic in their military database: massed assault, precision strikes, ramming attacks, even attempts to board the human vessel. Nothing worked. The Indomitable sat calmly in space, its shields effortlessly deflecting everything the aliens could throw at it. On the human bridge, Ensign Oda monitored the alien communications. "Captain, they're getting frustrated. Their fleet commander is demanding new strategies from her officers." "Any signs they're ready to talk?" Hanwoo asked. "Not yet, sir. But some of their junior officers are starting to question the attack." Lieutenant Yoon Bin studied his tactical display. "Sir, they're running low on plasma charge. Most of their ships are down to 40% weapon capacity." "How much power are we using for shields?" "About 2% of our reactor output, sir." Captain Hanwoo stood and walked to the main view screen. The Valterian fleet continued their attacks, but he could see their movements becoming more desperate and uncoordinated. "Commander Lee, open a channel to their fleet," he said. "Channel open, Captain. Admiral Valdris, your weapons cannot harm us and we do not wish to harm you. Please let us discuss this peacefully." Admiral Valdris heard the human captain's words and felt her warrior pride crumble. 2 hours of continuous attack, and they had not even made the human ship flicker its lights. "All ships cease fire," she commanded reluctantly. The space around the Indomitable suddenly became quiet. The alien fleet held position, their weapons powered down but still trained on the human vessel. Captain Sektar Voss's voice crackled over the fleet communications. "Admiral, with respect, maybe we should try talking to them. Our weapons clearly aren't working." "Coward," another captain shouted. "We just need heavier weapons." "What heavier weapons?" Voss replied. "We just hit them with everything we have." Admiral Valdris listened to her officers argue and realized the truth that hurt most of all. They were beaten, and they had never even seen the human ship's weapons. On the Indomitable, Dr. Choi Min continued monitoring the alien fleet. "Captain, their stress levels are extremely high. I'm reading signs of exhaustion, frustration, and what appears to be the beginning of panic in some crews. They fought bravely, Han Wu said with respect. It's not their fault their technology isn't adequate for the task. Chief Engineer Kim Tae's voice came over the intercom again. Captain, I've been analyzing their ship designs. They're actually quite impressive for their technological level. Good structural engineering, efficient use of materials. They're just working with outdated principles. Could their technology be improved? Han Wu asked. Oh, absolutely. Basic shield generators, better fusion systems, improved metallurgy. They could have ships comparable to our civilian vessels within a few years. Commander Li Na looked up with interest. Captain, that raises an interesting possibility. What if we offered to share technology with them after they attacked us? They attacked because they were afraid. Fear makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. Now that they understand we're not a threat, perhaps they'd be willing to learn. Captain Han Wu considered this. The Valtarians had shown courage, tactical skill, and persistence. They were clearly an intelligent species with a strong military tradition. With proper technology and guidance, they could become valuable allies rather than enemies. Parksol, open a channel to Admiral Valdris again. Channel open, sir. Admiral, I have a proposal. Instead of fighting, what if we shared knowledge? Your people have skills we admire, and we have technology that could benefit both our civilizations. Admiral Valdris stared at the communication panel. After 2 hours of futile combat, the humans were offering friendship and cooperation. It was either the greatest insult or the greatest opportunity in Confederation history. Why? She asked simply. Because, Captain Han Wu replied, the universe is a big place, and it's better to have friends than enemies. 3 days after the first meeting, space near the Nexus system lit up with another arrival. The Valtarian sensors detected the new ship long before it became visible, and what they saw made no sense. Admiral, the science officer reported to Valdris, there's another human vessel approaching, but the readings are impossible. Explain. It's moving at faster than light speed inside normal space. That should be physically impossible according to every theory we know. Admiral Valdris watched her screens as the new ship simply appeared next to the Indomitable, without any visible deceleration. This vessel was smaller but somehow looked more advanced than the battlecruiser. Sir, her communications officer added, we're receiving a transmission from the new ship. The speaker identifies herself as Ambassador Ryu Hana of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Han Wu smiled as the diplomatic vessel Harmony materialized alongside his ship. Perfect timing, he said. Captain, Commander Li Na reported, Ambassador Ryu Hana is requesting permission to come aboard. Of course. Have her meet us in Conference Room 1. Ambassador Ryu Hana was an elegant woman in her 50s, wearing the formal robes of the Terran Diplomatic Service. She carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who had negotiated with dozens of alien species. Captain Han Wu, she said as she entered the conference room, I received your first contact report. Fascinating situation you have here. Yes, ma'am. The Valtarians are a proud warrior culture, but they seem willing to negotiate now. And their technology level? About 3 centuries behind us, but they show good engineering principles. Commander Lee thinks they could advance quickly with proper guidance. Ryu Hana nodded thoughtfully. I've brought xenoarchaeologist Jin Wan to study their historical records, and engineer Ko Yul to assess their industrial capacity. If we're going to offer technological assistance, we need to understand their entire civilization. Over the next several hours, Jin Wan worked with the Valtarian historians to access their databases. What he found painted a troubling picture of galactic civilization. Captain, he reported to Han Wu, the Valtarian Confederation has been the dominant power in this region for over 6 centuries, but their expansion has been extremely slow by our standards. How slow? They've conquered 12 star systems in 1,000 years. Each conquest took decades of preparation and years of warfare. And most of their victories were against civilizations even more primitive than themselves. Engineer Ko Yul had been examining Valtarian technology samples with growing amazement. Captain, their engineering is actually quite good within their limitations, but they've been technologically stagnant for centuries. They've made almost no fundamental advances since they achieved interstellar flight. Why not? Han Wu asked. They seem to be trapped in their own success. Their technology was good enough to conquer their neighbors, so they never felt pressure to innovate. They've been using essentially the same designs for hundreds of years. This information troubled Hanwoo greatly. If the Valtarians were the most advanced civilization in this region, and they were 3 centuries behind humanity, what did that say about the galaxy as a whole? On the Valtarian flagship, Fleet Admiral Nexari Thos had arrived to take direct command of the situation. She was the Confederation's supreme military leader, a warrior who had never lost a battle in 40 years of service. "Show me these humans," she demanded as she reviewed the tactical reports Admiral Valdris played back, recordings of the asteroid destruction and the human ship's defensive capabilities. Thos watched in silence, her experienced eye noting details that others had missed. "Their ship design is wrong," she said finally. "Wrong, Admiral? Look at the hull configuration. That's not a warship, it's an exploration vessel. The proportions are all wrong for combat. Too much space for scientific equipment, not enough for weapons and armor. But their capabilities are far beyond anything we've ever encountered." Thos agreed. "Which means this exploration vessel is more powerful than our finest battleships." The implications were staggering. If this was how humans built their science ships, what were their actual military vessels like? Ambassador Ryu Hana requested a formal meeting with the Valtarian leadership. The gathering took place aboard the Harmony, in a conference room that seemed to reshape itself to accommodate both species comfortably. "Admiral Thos." "Admiral Valdris," Ryu Hana began, "we appreciate your willingness to meet with us. We understand this situation is unprecedented for your people. Your species appears to be significantly more advanced than ours." Thos said bluntly. "What are your intentions?" "To offer friendship and cooperation. We believe both our civilizations could benefit from cultural and technological exchange." "What kind of technological exchange?" Ryu Hana activated a holographic display showing human medical technology. "For example, our medical science could extend Valtarian lifespans by several centuries. Your people currently live about 200 years. We could help you reach 500 or more." The Valtarian officers exchanged shocked glances. Longer lifespans meant more time for learning, more experienced leaders, stronger family bonds. "And in return?" Thos asked suspiciously. "Cultural exchange. Your people have military traditions and tactical knowledge that would be valuable to study. Your art and music show interesting mathematical principles. Your social structures could teach us about collective decision-making." Engineer Ko Yul presented his analysis of Valtarian industrial capacity. "Your manufacturing systems could be upgraded relatively easily. Better fusion reactors, improved materials science, more efficient construction techniques. Within a decade, you could be building ships comparable to our civilian vessels." "And your military technology?" Thos asked. "That would be a longer-term discussion," Ryu Hana replied diplomatically. "Trust must be built gradually, but we're not offering to make you dependent on us. We want to help you develop your own advanced capabilities." Council Speaker Veltash Koros, the senior Valtarian civilian leader, had been listening quietly. Now he spoke up with a crucial question. "Ambassador, you speak of helping us advance our civilization, but what if we choose to remain as we are? What if we reject your offer? Then we'll respect your decision completely," Ryu Hana replied without hesitation. "We would simply ask for trading rights and diplomatic relations. No species has the right to force advancement on another." "And if we became hostile to your people?" Ryu Hana's expression became serious. "We would defend ourselves if necessary, but we would prefer to avoid such a situation entirely. Conflict benefits no one." Fleet Admiral Thos leaned forward intently. "How many ships like the Indomitable does humanity possess?" "The Indomitable is a mid-range exploration vessel," Ryu Hana replied carefully. "Humanity operates several thousand similar ships plus specialized military, industrial, and colony vessels. Several thousand ships, each more powerful than the Confederation's entire fleet." Thos felt the foundations of her worldview crumbling. "How many star systems do you control?" she asked. "We don't think in terms of control," Ryu Hana explained. "Humanity has colonies and settlements in over 800 systems. Each world governs itself, but all are connected through trade, communication, and mutual defense agreements. 800 systems. The number was so vast that Thos couldn't fully comprehend it. The mighty Valtarian Confederation, with its 12 conquered worlds, was barely a footnote compared to human civilization. "Why are you being so generous with us?" Council Speaker Koros asked. "You could simply take what you wanted." Because, Ambassador Ryuhana said with a gentle smile, civilizations that survive and thrive are those that cooperate rather than compete. The universe is vast and often dangerous. It's better to have friends than to stand alone. The same words Captain Hanwoo had used, Thos noted. Apparently, this was a fundamental principle of human civilization. For the first time in centuries, the Valtarian Confederation faced a choice that would determine their entire future. Remain as they were and be left behind, or accept help from strangers and risk losing their independence. The decision would reshape the galaxy.